Peterson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness!
Is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with Coop, talking a little NASCAR Sonoma 350. Coop, I know we talked pre-show about yesterday's race briefly. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. You don't want to talk about it per se, but maybe it holds some relevance for today. Kyle Larson randomly lost control of the car late in that race with a 15-second lead. So, I mean, a big lead regardless before the caution. How rare is that? And I didn't watch his post race. What did he say it was?
Well, he came around a turn and the front of the car hit that barrel of tires. And he said he lost control of the wheel, and that's why he made a certain left. And he said he thought it might have knocked out some of the toe, which took, away his speed. But, that's been the story for Kyle Larson at Sonoma, where he's by far the best driver there. Qualifies exceptionally well every time. But, in qualifying this week, he had a couple bad laps, and then he had a mental mistake there. Like, we were talking about tennis and how mental it is. Like, you have to be so focused every turn on these road courses. It's not like driving an oval where you're, going around in circles. You're going left, you're going right. You have to hit your spots. And, that's been his issue here. So, yeah, sucks. Had a 15-second lead, and then the caution came out. So, bad.
And Almirola, I mean, yeesh, for a guy like him to win a track like that.
Kudos to that team, man. I mean, they brought a great car. It was their first one ever. They went with Almirola, who's not really a great road course driver himself. But the car won that race, I would say.
Yeah, that was bad for a few reasons. I was actually in the Xfinity $10 150. I maxed it. And yes, that was I say it was a little painful, but I mean, Larson still ended up in the optimal, so like it didn't really matter in that sense. But
you want to hear painful? Like have Larson with like 18 laps left, have a 15-second lead, have bets on the top three to finish, Gibbs, Allmendinger, and Larson to finish top three. And then on the last lap, lost Allgaier top five.
Oh,
so it was brutal. And then not only that, it has some parlays tied with Kyle Larson that went down the drain. That would have went through because, they were tied with Joker.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, obviously it's part of this sport, right? And this sport has been, this calendar year for me, has been an absolute money pit. So I could definitely relate. But it's it's not fun, right? When that randomness kind of happens. It's part of the sport. And maybe you start saying to yourself, hey, why don't I just make bad lineups in this sport and just wait for the chaos to ensue? But man, that doesn't feel plus EV either. So, in relation to today, if anything, I'll have like two lineups in. I'm not going to max anything out because I'm actually running around and I'm going to the baseball game later tonight. So I don't want to be suck up my phone with watching this race while it's going on and whatnot. So, but with that said, I still have some takes. I still done some research in relation to this race, and I was heavy in the race yesterday, so I have a decent feel for the track as well. Just quick shouts to the chat. T. Jones, Otter, Corey, Yees, Zach, Jason, Jake, Jacob, much love. And we'll talk through this. As always, we'll talk through Coop's playbook. I'll add some things as we go. And then, of course, look, runpuresports.com. Check out Jason Hamlet's free article. Does a great job with it every week. Talks course history, breaks down the track, and then gives you a little cheat sheet of who he's going to be overweight on and underweight on. And then even gives you a little core at the end. So, again, totally free. Don't be shy. Head over to Run Pure Sports. Check out that free article. And, hey, look, and if you really want to save some time, become a member so you can get Coop's entire playbook, which is, where I always start my lineup building. And then we'll go through it. But again, you won't have to sit through this for the whole show. Would love for you to sit through it, but you won't have to if you are an RPS member. So head over on Pure Sports. You get 33% off with that code SUMMER33. All right. So
They're
Coop,
coming off a huge night in MMA too.
Oh, yes, that's right. There was some big stuff in MMA, and it was nice to see. I forgot who won 10K. Was that Tyler? Somebody won 10K, right?
Yeah, somebody did.
On our end, which was always love to see. So yeah, good stuff all around. Obviously, full baseball slate, which already kicked off from the last show as well. So yeah, a lot of good stuff all around. And the grass run starts in the tennis front, so I'm kind of excited there to get myself out of the clay mud. No pun intended. But either way, talk some NASCAR. Go through some dominators. Obviously, a road course. Tyler Reddick's name is always going to be in the shuffle. He's a slight favorite over Kyle Larson today. Chase Elliott, of course, is always in the mix. Allmendinger's a great road course rider as well. McDowell's shown some promise as well, right? Especially on road courses. So as far as dominators go, Trevor it was, Jacob. Good call. Thank you. So as far as who you think makes sense from the dominator standpoint, what directions are you going in today?
Well, I don't really want to think of it from like a dominator standpoint because there's only 110 laps, so there's not a lot of dominator points available. But those dominator points are very, very critical for the drivers, one, starting up front, and two, the drivers that are expensive, especially that aren't starting, in the back. So while there's not many, they're very, very important. So this tough race, because if you look at last year's race, the leader on every restart led every lap. There's very minimal passing at this course. It's very difficult. And then the other piece that makes it even tougher on top of that is the cars are so close to each other when it comes to speed. Now they're talking about tires, possibly, wearing, but, I've heard that story before. And then, even if you look at yesterday's race in the Xfinity, very little passing within that. And, they had long green flag runs. And it's not like, say, at Darlington where, a driver can be 3 or 4 seconds back and they go on the long run and their car, clicks in where others start struggling and they make up a couple seconds here or there. So, it's very tough. Track position is king today. And, one thing that is different with this race than, the prior races here is while they have stages, they're not going to throw a yellow at that stage. So they're going to continue racing. And this course has, predominantly been known to have little cautions. There's not a lot of dive bombing where it's 2 to 3 wide that's going to happen and bring out cautions where they have bigger wrecks, like the Indy Road course, has that horrible turn one. Even Coda had the horrible turn one where they go 3, 4 wide, and you could see accidents up there. So that one makes gaining positions tougher. And two, track position even more important. So, if you go back and look at the last couple races at Sonoma where they've had stage breaks, there was one where the only caution was the stage breaks. There's another one where there was only one caution plus the stage breaks, and then one with 2. You look at the Xfinity race yesterday, it had 2. So don't expect a lot of cautions. Expect it to be tough to pass. And like I said, track position is king. So you have to hit it right where you pit, and then you have cars that are, in the front, or, some of the cars in the front haven't pit, and you can gain track position from that sense. But other than that, you're not going to see drivers just drive up through the field. So I think, one, you can kind of make lineups based upon, do you see, a really long green flag race with minimal change? Or two, you take a chance and you think there is some chaos some way, somehow. And then you start really loading up on place differential drivers. So, but anyways, back to the dominators. They are very important points for him. Hamlin got the pole. He's a solid road course driver. But, he said he took the package that Tyler Reddick is running, and that's what he's running. And my thing with Denny Hamlin is, can he not make mistakes? He's going to have Reddick right on his butt, at the very beginning. And I think Reddick, knows that he has to pass him right at the very beginning. So I think, I give the edge to Tyler Reddick. But the other piece, like this, I don't think we're going to see a car pull away like we did yesterday in Larson and have a 15-second lead. We could see, 5, 6, 7-second lead. But even then, like the third, fourth, fifth place cars, they're so far behind. They're not going to, just make up that ground. So for me, it's Reddick up front. I also like Michael McDowell. He has been very good on the road courses since last year. Prior to that, he was very solid on it, but he took his game to another level. I think Chris Buescher is in the same sense. And, you can't count out AJ Allmendinger. He hasn't been the greatest in Cup when it comes to these road courses, but he's always solid. I think you can play two of the drivers, up front. Going with 3 is a stretch. But, I think, you could pull it off if everything goes right. So, I think you got to have to make some tough decisions up there too, because, there's drivers up there that are like an Allmendinger, like at 9.3K. If he doesn't get any dominator points, it's not going to do you any good, If somehow Hamlin holds off Reddick and Reddick doesn't get the dominator points, he's not doing you any good either. So, I'm going to fade Hamlin and take my chances that Reddick beats him, and Reddick stays up there. But, it's really tough sledding up top. You got to make some critical decisions. And there's so many of them up there, you got to make choices. Like, you can't play them all or it's just going to dilute your ownership.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to sift through there. Before I go, though, like the video, folks. Don't be a freeloader. It's not hard. Just go ahead and look. Boom, like the video, right? Nice and easy, short and sweet. Takes 2 seconds. Not going to kill you. We're not asking you for blood. We're not asking you for a liver, heart transplant. Just like the video. In relation to crew, your comment, why Hamlin's priced down. I'll be honest, he's priced down and he's not going to see much ownership. I'd be shocked if he was more than 12, 13% owned today. Part of the reason I believe is, first of all, this isn't his favorite type of track. Number 2, he's right head-to-head with Tyler Reddick, right? So, it's almost inevitable that Reddick is going to pass him on this track. So, I think that – and then, of course, starting from 1, you basically need him to lead 20 or 30 laps today, at least, and then hold his position. He needs to lead 20 or 30 laps and then hold his position within the top 5, because he's priced. If you look at where he's actually priced, right? He's priced right around guys because it was at 8,900, I think. So he's in that Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, fun place differential area, which makes it hard, right? It's not exactly super easy to play him with confidence today. So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to fade him. Look, Hamlin could win. Not saying that can't happen. But, Allmendinger's going to probably push to the front. Reddick's likely going to pass him early. And then what do you do from there, right? So I think you can play him. But, again, do realize you basically need him to hold inside the top 5 and lead laps for you, because there's just a lot of place differential to go around for this track. And a track that doesn't have a lot of laps led or points to get that way, place differential is likely going to be the big part to go in. Or even at least guys holding their place that are cheaper, guys like McDowell, like Coop mentioned. So it does make it difficult. As far as the dominators go, I like some of the names that were mentioned. Of course, Reddick's going to be at the top. And Chase Elliott's interesting, right? It's very clear that he needs a W. So it's not like you have to deal with motivation issues. Not that you ever deal with that anyway, but Allmendinger is tough to land, in my opinion. Because you mentioned a few good points on him, right? It's what you kind of need out of him makes it tough. But because of that, he's only going to be sub 15% owned. I'd say at 9,300. I'll be honest, Coop, at 9,300 is second place with no laps led even good enough for him to be in the optimal?
Probably not. No, it just depends on the race plays out, but probably not. Chase Elliott's very interesting play because you compare him with Reddick and you're going to be different going with the two of them at the top of the board. But he could very easily dud. If he doesn't get any dominator points, he's done for you because of his price. So my concern with playing him though is like people love to play Chase Elliott, the name, and is he going to get ownership from that piece? But if he's a low-owned play, I think he's very much worthy of a couple of shots because, like you said, he has to win basically to move on to the playoffs. And he knows this is one of his better opportunities. And, he has a good car. He had a bad lap yesterday. At the end, he was, trending to be on the front row. But again, it's like I just said at the beginning of the race with Larson, like you have to hit every single spot every single time. And it's very difficult.
Yeah, I think that you're going to see some hybrid mix of Elliott, Reddick, Larson for obvious reasons, right? Problem is you play two out of these three drivers, and you do need the race to go a very specific way. The good part is today there's not too many like super high price drivers, right? I mean, the highest price driver is 10-6. Like you can, I'm being serious. Like you can play all three of them together and still have a lineup where you're not like totally hating. But again, you play all three of them together, you basically need them to fall 1, 2, 3 because of what you're paying for them. You need them to fall 1, 2, 3. So that would make you different in that sense.
If you play all three of them together too, you probably need some type of chaos to happen within the race because you're going to be heavy into the value range of having at least two drivers down there.
You need Blaney and Cindric to fizzle. Like Blaney and Cindric are going to be chalky. You need the two of them. You need the two of them to just not be able to move up the field, which could happen in theory.
Yeah,
but
I think it very well much could happen.
You need them to not move up the field. Now we saw yesterday, Coop. Just to put it to comparison, because now we'll move over to place differential drivers anyway. We saw yesterday Cole Custer.
Great.
Despite not having a big car, like a great car, because you could tell he was struggling with that car, he still moved up through the field. Like he moved inconsistently, like was consistently gaining spots throughout the entire race.
But how long did it take him?
Yeah, it took him a while. I mean, because of the pitting cycle, right?
Right. It took him the majority of the race, and that's the problem. Like it took him the majority of the race, and if he makes one little mistake, look at how much he's going to lose.
But where it was
just all gained.
But where it was different, Coop, was Cole Custer was like 10-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Blaney's 8-4, right? You don't need what you needed at a Custer from Blaney today. And Custer, I didn't check. Did Custer might have landed in the optimal? Did he? Because he finished in 6th.
Yeah. It probably by different mattered by different contests, but yes.
So yeah, I think that with the right car, you can definitely move up the field. But to Coop's point, it takes time. So it's not easy. It's literally got to be a one car at a time type of thing. I know that almost sounds cliche, but every car that's in front of you somewhat requires a new game plan for how you're going to get around them.
The other piece that you got to consider too is one, he passed a lot of slower cars that aren't going to be as slow today as what he placed yesterday. And two, he probably had a better car than maybe what a Blaney and a Cindric and a Byron have today.
Fair. So I guess this brings up a good point. Moves us to place differential. What are you doing here, Coop? Because Blaney, Cindric are going to be like silly type levels of chalk. And yeah, some people might go to Briscoe. Some people may play Harvick. I don't want to say may. They're going to play these dudes. But, there's just Blaney almost feels like that prototypical free square. But what's even crazier to me is, I guess Cindric's odds have come down a bit since. But
Yeah.
Blaney at like 45-1 starting from 34th. Pete, he's going to see 50% ownership today. I'd almost think he has to see that type of ownership today. What are you doing with Blaney? What are you doing with Cindric? And then let's talk, some of the other guys.
So, like last year, Kyle Larson led like the first stage. He stayed out and didn't pit. He won the stage. He started the second stage in 24th place. It took him the entire stage to get up to 14th place. And he had a very good car. So Blaney showed some decent speed. Cindric uncharacteristically showed horrible speed. And that's the thing, like, will they be able to get their speed? And we can talk about Byron too, because Byron was by far the biggest disappointment in my mind, from what I expected out of him and what we got. So if you look at prior Sonoma results, if you look at drivers who start 25th or worse, typically you find anywhere from 1 to 2 of them finish in the top 15. Not very many at all. So, they're not going to fly up through the field. And the thing that concerns me with Blaney and Byron, not as much Cindric, but the Blaney and Byron, is they're at the top of the point standings. And they could just say, hey, I don't have the car today. And, if the opportunity arises to where the leaders pit and then they could stay out and get some stage points some way, somehow, which, will be good for them because they know every little extra point they can get, will help them in the standings, but it sucks for DFS because you don't get stage points in DFS. And the strategy is not a good race winning finishing position type of strategy. So I could see both of those drivers, playing that if that opportunity arises. I have more confidence in Blaney getting up front than Byron. And Cindric, I'm not sure what to make of. Because, again, it wasn't like they had bad laps in qualifying or they, were fast in practice. Like, they just didn't hit the right setups. And you have very minimal chance to correct the car because you're going to have very few pit stops today. And if you look at where they've got a place to make value, like Cindric and Blaney have to finish 15th. Byron has to finish 10th. I have absolutely no confidence that Byron finishes 10th unless this race is, flipped upside down some way, somehow. So Byron's going to be a fade for me, and I'll be underweight on Cindric and Blaney because I think there's a good chance that neither one of them finish in the top 15.
That's interesting, right? Because that would put you at quite an edge. So if you're not playing them two, I assume you're getting place differential from that middle of the pack, like Kez.
Well, I think you got to also kind of look at it from this perspective is we typically want 5 times the price when it comes out, all right? And, if you look at all these drivers, what they have to accomplish to be able to hit that 5 times. Not many of them are going to hit the 5 times. So it's going to be a battle of, which one comes the closest. 1 or 2 of them might, all right? But after that, it's going to become which drivers come the closest to hitting that. And I just think starting that far back is a detriment to, 1, ending up playing the wrong strategy, and 2, being able to get up there. Like I said, these cars are so close in speed, and it's so tough to pass here. But yeah, I like getting that edge from them. Harvick's going to be, popular too. But again, like Harvick has to finish 12th, but like I think there's a better shot that Harvick finishes 13th, 14th, or 15th than maybe Blaney or Cindric finish 16th, 17th, 18th. So it's really close in that aspect. I think, Chase Briscoe's another one that is not going to get played very much. Keselowski not going to get played very much. And, if they just finish like a couple spots ahead and then some of these other chalky drivers don't hit what they need to, you're going to be so much farther ahead of the field.
Makes a ton of sense. And I think that most of your lineups today are going to have either Blaney or Cindric. It doesn't mean they all will, but I do think a bulk of your lineups are going to have one of those two drivers, and borderline deservedly so, right? I mean, borderline deservedly so.
If you look at Ford in general, they were horrible. You take away Buescher and you take away McDowell, they were the only 4 cars that had any type of speed whatsoever.
That's interesting. And Buescher starts near the front, right?
Yeah, 7th.
But he's kind of. I mean, how does he normally perform on these tracks? Is he normally like?
Yeah, him and McDowell upped their game last year. Buescher wasn't as good as McDowell prior, but I think Buescher has 6 consecutive top 10 finishes, and I think if you're really looking at it, I think it'll be interesting to see how the ownership between McDowell and Buescher plays out, because McDowell's cheaper by $500, but I don't really think it matters because of the pricing of what you said before. Whereas Buescher has a little bit more place differential, but at the end, I think McDowell has more dominator upside than Buescher. So it's going to be interesting, because you could almost say that Buescher is going to be a pivot off of McDowell, but I'm not quite so sure. I think maybe they come in relatively close to each other.
Fair. Let's move over to middle tier drivers. Obviously, going to get some familiar names here. But what are we doing here in this middle of the pack? Guys starting from the middle, maybe have mid to middle odds in general, but we'll say starting from the middle or beyond. What do we like here, Coop?
Well, obviously, what are you going to do with Kyle Larson is a big question to begin with. He starts 16th. He has place differential upside, and he has win ability. I don't know if he has dominator upside, because again, starting 16th, until a caution comes out, he's going to be nowhere near the front. He's going to be 10, 15 seconds behind, but he could get up to 9th place, by the end of the first stage. Who knows? But then again, he could be in 13th place, at the end of the first stage, because like I said, last year we saw it's not that easy to pass. And, his car was really good in practice, but it wasn't like his Xfinity car where it was incredible in practice. So, I think it's a tough, fade. But I think you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to play him or not? Because what kind of ownership are you showing on him?
On Larson specifically?
Yeah.
It's not. This isn't right, but I'm seeing about 30%. I'd be honest though.
I would be surprised if he's that high.
It feels a little high, all things considered, because I do feel like people are going to play Reddick, even though Reddick has lower. Reddick is they're having 15. Right. I think Reddick's going to be closer to 25-ish, because people always play the favorite, right? So he's the race favorite. People always play the race favorite.
And it comes down to also, do you want to play Elliott over Larson? Because
I think
Elliott the ownership of one or the other.
Yeah, Elliott makes a ton of sense to me for a lot of reasons, especially if you're going that route where you're going to fade the guys from the back. But where this race becomes annoying to try to handicap properly in terms of DFS is pitch strategies. Everybody's pitch strategy tends to be a little different here. And granted, when I say everybody, I don't mean isolated people are different. I mean that group-wise, some people choose to pit 2 laps before a stage ends. Some people choose to pit at the end of the stage. Some people don't even pit. So the first stage will end. Some people won't even pit at the end of the first stage. They'll just drive and drive and drive. And typically with I'm trying to think, yesterday they made it clear before the race that you only really needed 2 pit stops. For this track, a few extra laps, do you need 3 total? As far as need, whether you want.
You only need 2 for gas. All right. Tires is the question. Do you need 2 or 3? I think it's probably going to end up being 3. Who knows? But again, what you just said, where drivers want to stay out. I could see Blaney doing that I could see a Byron doing that. I could see Kozlowski doing that. So those are inherent risks on playing those guys. And if, they haven't pitted, yeah, they're going to gain all that track position. But if a caution comes out, they're going to lose it all. And then again, short pitting is the way to go. It's just a matter of, you're taking that chance and hoping the caution comes out. And the caution very well may not come out. So it's tough, very tough.
My take on Blaney. I played Blaney when he's less than 15% owned. I never play him when he's more than that. He's going to be the chalkiest driver on the slate today.
Yep.
Oh, look, he's an easy fade for me. He gets there. But again, remember, especially in the multi-$15, you play Ryan Blaney in an entry in a contest with 40,000 fucking entries. You are competing with 20,000 entries that also have Ryan Blaney if he does well today. If he doesn't do well, you have just surpassed 20,000 lineups.
Where it would have been interesting is if Blaney was like 91 or 93, like where Cindric is priced. And then Cindric was priced where Blaney is. Because then, we might have seen a lower owned, not that he's going to be low owned, but a lower owned than what he is going to be, Blaney. So, but that price is just, going to make people click on him.
You just know, though, and to your point, a guy like Blaney or Cindric, they're going to have to change a pit cycle today to move up. And in doing so, how much is that going to cost them? But either way.
But back to this middle tier, I think it has some very good plays in it. After Larson, you got Bowman, who I think is going to see some ownership. He was solid in practice. He's had some solid results on road courses. 14th position. He only has to get the 9th to make value. Of all the drivers that we've talked about, I think he has the best realistic shot of making value. When you look at how many spots he has to pick up, it's much more realistic than some of these other drivers. Then I think two low-owned drivers that are going to be pivots off of, any of the drivers that we've already spoken about is Logano and Bubba Wallace. Neither one of them are, great on road courses. Logano is much better than Bubba. Bubba overall has improved as a driver. But, we saw yesterday Bubba flat spotting his tires, Bubba driving, out in the dirt. But I think they're just going to be so low owned that you just got to take a shot here or there. And if they finish 14th or 15th or 13th some way, somehow, and their ownership is going to be so much lower than a Blaney, a Cindric, a Harvick, even a Bowman, that, they could pull out for you. But on the other end, Bubba could Bubba and be in 27th place. Logano could, just not be good at all and finish where he is. So they're risky GPP plays, something that'll make you get different, and you never know what's going to happen.
Shame of it is God, the only reason I would even play Bubba Wallace is because of his price.
Right.
Because yes, he's priced in a tier where he's very playable.
Right, but look, everybody's going to click, all the other drivers around him. Look at who's priced around him. He's going to come in low owned.
Yeah, I mean, people are definitely going to click Briscoe's name. People are definitely going to click Justin Haley. McDowell, Ty Gibbs is going to get clicked. And just because we've seen a few questions on Ty Gibbs as the last piece, no, I don't mind it at all. We've talked up Ty Gibbs. He's clearly been good on these types of tracks. Maybe not great, but he's been good. We talk about playing guys at low price. He's 75. His prices come down a bit. He's in the front of a race where it's hard to pass. So, but again, we talk on getting value. Ty Gibbs is likely not going to lead laps today. Likely not. He might lead a lap or two or a few, whatever. But
Ty Gibbs is a good pivot off of McDowell and Buescher. He's not going to be as high owned as either one of them. And, if neither one of them leads laps, it all just comes down to a finishing position between those three drivers. And, he very much well could, pull the end out of it.
A driver that's interesting that we haven't really talked much on before we get to the final section here, Coop. Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, two drivers that we really haven't talked much on. Decent win equity. They are likely going to be low owned as they can be in NASCAR. And I say that because they are going to be sub 10 to 12% owned ish. What are we doing with these two drivers?
What's Bell's price again?
He's 86.
He isn't going to be that low.
You don't think so? I'm with you. This is the second cheapest price he's been all year. Third cheapest price he's been all year.
He has a road course win. He's been known out there to have decent road course finishes. I don't think he's going to be like 20, 25% owned, but I don't think he's going to be around 10. I think he's somewhere in his middle teens. But my concern with Toyota, Joe Gibbs in general, is like last year we saw them have some good qualifying sessions on the road courses. But once they got driving, the tire wear kicked in and their cars become very bad. Have they fixed that? I have no idea. But, we got so many, you got Truex up there, you got Ty Gibbs up there, you got Bell up there, and Hamlin up there. They're all starting in the top 8. So we know they have short run, quick speed. But again, are they that much better than like an Elliott or a Larson? We just know that they hit the laps at the right time, where Elliott and Larson didn't. So in the end, I just would rather put my money on Elliott and Larson than any of those Joe Gibbs cars.
I do think from a lineup construction standpoint, though, I don't necessarily think you need all this like crazy value today because of the pricing at the top is not that high. So you don't need to go fetching for value today in every way. And it's a good segue because obviously this becomes the last piece.
Well, real quick, back to Kyle Busch, his price is just too much for me. Same with Dan Suarez. Their price is just too much for what they've got to, get done.
And I'll be honest, Scoop, to your point on Suarez, I thought he looked awful yesterday. Probably the car, probably whatever, but I thought he looked terrible. I thought he had multiple opportunities to move up and down the field and didn't.
Right. Same with Chastain. His price is way up there too.
Yeah, Chastain.
So they need dominator points, and it's just very, very difficult to play them. Could they get them? Sure. All right. But one, I wouldn't combine any of my lineups with the three of them because two of them getting them is really going to be difficult. But one of them, sure. One of them possibly good. Who knows? But, I think mathematically, analytically, when you're looking at it, what are the chances of it happening? I would probably say it's less than 20% that one of them gets dominator points.
Yeah, I think there's interesting strategies to be taken for this race, and stands to be taken too. Because I think if you're just somebody who's normally in the NASCAR streets building lineups, to you, this is probably going to feel pretty easy to build a lineup, and it really should never feel so easy, right? And I say it's going to feel easy. Why? Because the place differential seems so simple today. But again, it's a tough track to pass on.
If you only go with one expensive driver, 10K, you don't have to go below 7K to make your lineup. So I don't think that's a bad idea, So, because I know we haven't got to the value, but the value is very challenging this week and very difficult because they're not going to get top 10s. If one of them gets to the top 15, it would be, a great feat for them. They're really looking for top 20s to finish in the late teens. So, I think Ricky Stenhouse and Austin Dillon are going to get some ownership because of their starting position, and especially, Stenhouse because of how he's been performing. But their margin of error is so little. So little.
Yeah, it's tough. And you said it to the point. Blaney and Cindric, I thought, were great points in the fact that they don't necessarily need this race, right? Wouldn't be crazy if they went all out for a stage win to get some points there.
Like Stenhouse is another one. Like he doesn't need a win. He's going to be in the playoffs. He already has that win. Like he could stay out and get stage points if the caution falls right, and then boom, he's fine out in the back of the field. You know, so Ricky typically isn't a great road course driver, but like he's having a great season. You can't discount him. But Dylan isn't a great road course driver either. But if you look at his record over the last year, year and a half on road courses, he's made an improvement by far. But again, I just think their margin of error is so minimal because if they go from 11th to 15th or 13th to 18th, and there's an possibility they go farther, like they're done. I think there's a better chance that they go backwards than what they go forward. And like, it's really tough to stay where they're at.
Yeah,
I think both of them are going to get some ownership.
As you even look through some of the odds, like Austin Cindric plus 120 and Ryan Blaney plus 140 to T10, like that just seems crazy to me. Like, you would figure like they would need to be much more than that, or just really step in shit. Like, because there's not a lot of time in this race for you to move that far up the field.
Right.
And again, when you add in the fact that these dudes are going to be 50% owned each, yeah, I think it's an interesting take for sure. Let's round the show out though, Coop. Talk on.
Yeah, like if you go to the value, like we started talking about, like like I like Justin Haley again. Dinger showed him a lot. The car is going to be decent. I don't think he's going to get much ownership. Burton's going to get a lot of ownership. He's a safe play, especially in cash, if you want to go that route. But he's not a great road course driver. Can he finish in the top 30? I don't know. Be close. Ryan Preece, I think, another driver nobody's going to click on. He can finish 18th, 19th, 17th somehow. He's going to be a great leveling, hedge for you. I think there's a couple drivers at the back. Gilliland and is going to be tough. He's not in the normal equipment that he's at, but he's a good road course driver. And if somehow he can finish in the outside part of the top 25, and all these other drivers struggle, he could get it done for you. Zane Smith's the same way. Like any one of these drivers, you're just throwing darts at which one's going to be doing it. But that's kind of why I like, making lineups with none of the drivers below 7K or only having one of them. Where you talked about earlier, playing three of the big guns, that makes it really tough to hit the right 3 or 2 value drivers.
Yeah, because again, and I don't know if this always gets noticed, but when you're building lineups, like the highest priced individual and the lowest price individual, it matters, right? And the highest price, and I don't mean the individual themselves, I mean the actual price tags. There is not a top-heavy-esque racer in this course. Like, there's just not. We're used to seeing tracks where you get a guy who's 11.9, you get a guy who's 11.8, you get multiple guys that are over 11. Not today. Not today. Your highest priced dude's 10K, 10.6.
Right. I think it has to go back to their algorithm, because like it's like that on every road course. So when there's not that many dominator points, you tend to see the lower, price structure on the, elite drivers.
Yeah, and I think if we let me ask you this, Coop, because you mentioned a few different value drivers in general. Who's two guys that you're definitely going to be overweight on versus the field today?
That are like less than 7K?
Yeah, in that less than 7K area.
Probably Preece and Haley.
Preece and Haley. So that's interesting. It's interesting with Preece. Walk me through Preece. Because, like, for me,
I don't think anybody's going to play him.
Oh, he's not going to go. He's not going to get owned today. You're right. Good.
And he did get some track experience, on this track, the race on the weekend. And again, like, he showed how important he won from the pole. So, I don't know. It's just taking a gamble, And again, like, when you say overweight, like, I'm not going to have like 60% Ryan Preece. I only need 25% Ryan Priest to probably be
You're not even gonna need that much. I'd be shocked if Ryan Priest is more than 10% owned today. I'll be honest with you. So you're not even gonna need that much of him. So that's
I mean, it's just playing leverage. That's all it is. And like I said, I don't know any one of these drivers. Like, do I want to play a chalky Harrison Burton or a non-chalky Ryan Priest? I'll take Priest.
Yeah, and Justin Haley's interesting because he's 6'7". Mm-hmm. Now the problem is I'd argue with where he's starting from, value becomes quite a question mark for Mr. Haley because at 6'7", starting from 23rd, he'd probably need a T10, right, to get you there. 34 points. Oh, that's 34 plus the place differential. So actually, he'd probably need like 15th place. 15th.
I'd say 16th or 17th, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, 15th to 17th, I'll say.
That's interesting. Yeah, Haley's going to see some ownership. So just so you know, it's a little different situation than Priest. Haley will see ownership today, but it probably about 15 to 20. Either way, he's going to be probably double, maybe even triple Priest's ownership.
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick. Give me 1 minute. He's starting 23rd. Let's say 7 times 5 is 35. Yeah, 17th place.
17th. Yeah, so 17th gets you in.
Would you rather take a shot at like a Justin Haley needs to gain 6 spots to make value? Or would you rather at 15% ownership, or Ryan Blaney has to gain 16 spots at 50% ownership?
And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if Ryan Blaney gains 16 spots. I don't know if that puts him in the optimal.
Right. I mean, it all just depends upon how it lays out, but I don't know. That's why I don't mind not playing Blaney or Cindric and being well under the field on them.
No, makes a ton of sense. All right, cool. So I guess last but not least, Coop, who are some drivers you're definitely off today?
Bell, I'm going to take my shots on Denny Hamlin and hope that Reddick gets there. I had Gibbs listed as a fade, but the more I think about it, maybe I'd take a shot on him as a pivot off of McDowell and Busher a little bit, because he'll probably have maybe half the ownership of those two. Suarez I already talked about. I can't play him because of the price. Bush, I can't play him because of the price. Martin Truex is just going to be a fade for me. He's 8,800, which isn't an egregious price, but I don't think he has the win equability, and I don't think he has top 3 equability. I think he probably finishes right around where he started. Stenhouse I talked about. Dillon I've talked about. I'm not playing Randy Corey LaJoie and Eric Amarola. Traditionally, neither one of them are very good on road courses. They start too far up. I do think they might get more ownership than, let's say, a Ryan Priest. And then the back drivers, I'm very limited on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, so many different takes can be had or not had with this course. I know we briefly talked on Eric Jones. You a big fan, not a fan at all? What do we like? What do we like or not like with Eric Jones? He's in a unique spot where he's starting from 28th. His price under 7K. He's not going to be owned. What are you doing with Eric Jones?
I can't trust the speed in that car. It's not had speed all year long. Didn't have speed in practice, so I don't understand why it wouldn't just randomly have speed. I don't think he gets into the top 20.
Yeah, I think it's just very interesting all around. But I think you can find ways to be different, of course, like we can with any other track. But again, the way the pitting strategy is going to be the big difference. So brace yourself now. And I know Shark and Jake have been going back and forth on the need or not need for these types of tracks. These types of tracks at least make things different. They make things feel different. And it has its own positives that way, right? Obviously, it creates a different dynamic for racers. It creates a different dynamic for bettors. Creates a different dynamic for just fans of the sport. But no, these are fun tracks. Granted, to each his or her own. I find these fun. It's a little different, right? Obviously, the super speedways are different, but like this to me is very different. And it makes the race exciting. And you don't see as many.
Can be like they just need tire wear. They just need the tires to wear.
Exactly. But like, it is fun in this aspect. At least I think, because you get a race that typically doesn't have as many cautions, and even when there are cautions, they're typically not like race-ending cautions. But obviously, crazier things have happened. But I do like these. These are exciting. So yeah, you convinced me. I did throw a bunch of lineups in, Coop. So I know you didn't. I know you didn't even try to convince me. But these are some of my favorite tracks.
So you're not going to play Byron, right?
No.
You're not going to play Blaney, right?
I have a rule with him. I can't play him when he's chalk, so I won't play Blaney.
And you're not going to play Cindric, right?
Cindric
or is he the one you're going to take some shots on?
He would be the chalkiest guy I would take a shot with, but I'll likely in the big tournament. I likely also will not play Cindric. I get it. Look, I don't need the NASCAR police to tell me how good of a play they are. I get it. They're good plays, but they're 50% owned today. So yeah, I'll just take my chances that they struggle to move up the field. Or maybe go out of their way to pitch strategy to steal a stage, and it costs them a lot of track position afterwards. So yeah, they're gonna be at minimum extremely low weight on Cindric and completely off Blaney.
What about Hamlin? You gonna take some dabs at him?
Look at my pool. Hamlin would be a guy I would play at a track like this, just because he's not going to see ownership. But I do think you should have a rule, especially if you have Reddick and Hamlin in your pool. I think there should be a rule that you have one without the other, because one of these two is going to break to the front, and one of them is obviously not. And where they're priced, I mean, wouldn't you agree, Coop? Like, think about what type of nonsense would have to happen that the two of them at their price points are both in the optimal.
Yeah, it would be tough. They would basically have to finish first and second, I think.
And both would have to
maybe
lead
first and third.
And both would have to lead like 30 laps.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'd also be competing against all that place differential. That means Kyle Larson also did not make it into the optimal.
Mm-hmm.
That means, and if those three, even if magically those three made it to the optimal, you can't afford Ryan Blaney. You can't afford Austin Cindric. So you're just hoping for place differential nightmares with that build.
Like if you're playing Larson, you might have Blaney, but you're probably not going to have Cindric in your lineup.
Yeah, it's just because then you start having to play guys under 6,500, which it gets a little ugly there.
Right. Like I was sitting here thinking like people who like ran or are constantly checking their phone at their lineups and seeing how well they do. Like this is going to be really, really tilting for them, because there's a good chance that like they look at it and they have a good team and it's going to continue to stay there, because you can see long green flag runs here with minimal passing. So like if you hit the right nuts, like you could have it up there for, a majority of the race. But then all of a sudden, like, if that caution comes out, man, it could flip and you could just like go from the top to the bottom really quickly.
And by the way, call it late steam, Coop. Larson's moved up to 350 on DraftKings for today.
Yeah. DraftKings.
Call what you will. We started this show. Reddick was 4-1, and Larson was 5-5 to 1. Larson's actually moved up to 3-5 to 1, and Reddick is 4-1. So yes, interesting there. Now I want to be clear: the Hamlin Reddick situation is not the same as Larson Reddick. I think there is a very decent chance that you could get Reddick and Larson in the optimal today because of Larson's place differential he can grab. Hamlin does not have that option in place differential today. So I think those are apples and oranges there. So just keep that in mind. But other than that, any final notes, Coop, and we can get out of here.
No, I'm good. Any
Cool.
questions from anybody?
Busher, Ty Gibbs, and then I think we talked a bit on Truex, Jay. I think he's a tough play for myself today. I get it. The win equity's there. Fourth highest price driver to win the race, starting from 8th. So I guess you can't totally mind it, but I'm probably going to be at or slightly below the field at 15 to 20% on Truex. I think he's just a tough guy to play today. And then on your end, Coop, what about Busher or Ty Gibbs?
I would say I would go Ty if I have more chalk in my lineup. Busher if I have less.
Interesting. All right, folks. So with all that said, I wish you all the best of luck today. Stanton bomb tonight. Hey, Jay. Look, I'm not going to mind it. Maybe for sure. Thing is, right now, Jay, he's the only guy in that lineup. Like, I feel like you can just pitch around him. But I guess crazier could happen. But no, I can't mind the take. And as far as who wins the race, I don't know. I know this sounds crazy. I don't like handicap this sport with who's going to win the race. I'm just looking for value. Coop, do you have any strong stands as far as who you think wins the race? Is this going to be a Larson leads end to end again, and you just hope not another disaster?
No. It's going to take him a long time to get to the front, unless we have early caution and somehow he switches it up some way somehow. But no, I mean, if I had to pick somebody, it would be Reddick. But again, I don't think there's one. I just think it all comes down to strategy, and whoever is in that first place position with after the last caution comes is going to be golden.
Yeah, can't disagree there at all. And we watched the race yesterday, and there was really only one car that moved through the field, and that was Cole Custer, who, mind you, was like a 6-1 or 7-1 favorite to win the race. Starting from 28th or 29th, whatever he started from. And it took him the entire race to get there. Just something to note from yesterday. But other than that, look, folks, I wish you all the best of luck today. Gamble responsibly as always. And yes, run pure. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your